Good afternoon and welcome to the Federal Executive Forum celebrating 18 years of profiling excellence in government IT mission programs. I'm Luke McCormack. During today's show, we will discuss best practices with IT modernization programs and strategies in the federal government. With me on today's show are Von Noga, Chief Information Officer, Environmental Protection Agency, Patrick Newbold, Assistant Deputy Commissioner, Deputy CIO, Social Security Administration, Guy Cavallo, Chief Information Officer, Office of Personnel Management, Michael Adams, Divisional Vice President, Public Sector Federal, Verizon Business Group, Jonathan Harmon, Vice President, Worldwide Sales, BMC Software, and Parth Vakil, Lead Solution Architect, U.S. Federal Databricks. Well, we've had a lot of great guidance from OMB, Cloud Smart, the Security EO, the ZTA, Zero Trust Direction, and then, of course, an EO on CX, which I think is near and dear to all of your hearts, and then some TMF funding out there for those that chose to take it. Let's start with you, Vaughn. You had 6 audacious goals that you put out there several years ago, and I know you're still sort of hammering away on that. Give us a state of the state as to where you're at right now.
Yeah, so we're still hammering away at the wildly important goals, as we call them here at the EPA. And one of the ones that we really focused on early on, so I've been in the role about 4.5 years now, and one of the ones that we focused in on was digitizing records, really, and this ties into M1921, which requires federal agencies to move to a digital or to digitize their records. And so where I really embraced this was before this role, I actually managed facilities for the agency. And one of the things I saw over and over again were floors full of paper files, right? And so I was able to actually look at that and actually draw that, hey, we need to do something in this space. So for the last 4 years, we've been working at establishing national digitization centers, 2 of them, which will allow us to collapse all those local digitizations or those record centers that we've got in the EPA facilities, and centralize those and centralize the ability to digitize records. And so that's been forefront for us. In addition to those other things that you already mentioned, which is enterprise-wide logging, moving forward and moving out on ZTA, multi-factor authentication. All those things are very important to what we're doing here at the EPA. And most importantly is how do we enable our employees to be able to do their mission. So really looking at how do we reduce the churn, if you will, associated with just employee activities to get their jobs done, right? So we focus also on things like how do we make sure our employees have the tools they need to get the job done? And something as simple as how do we modernize and make sure that we've got modern laptops that are distributed to employees? And so one of the things that we looked at is how do we move from a very interesting way of budgeting to buy new laptops where you either have dollars or you don't. If you don't have dollars, you can't buy laptops, to a new way of thinking, looking at tools like that as fixed costs, right? So you're able to actually look at, hey, we're going to budget for 25% refresh over 4 years. So employees have and know that they will get a refresh technologies every 4 years. Again, these are a couple of things that we're looking at from a modernization lens.
Just basic building blocks to work your way up that value chain. Patrick, I can imagine that you've got these extensive systems out there reaching out to millions and millions of citizens. A daunting task, no doubt, as you work on that modernization journey to fulfill that promise to all the citizens, right? Give us a state of the state.
Well, thank you, Luke. I would tell you, we are still using that momentum that the COVID-19 pandemic sparked. And, the first 10 months of the pandemic brought about 10 years of accelerated modernization at SSA.
Mm-hmm.
In March of 2020, our primary way to serve the customer was face-to-face. And so, modernization helped create new adaptive ways to service the customer. And today, many of those services can be delivered through our digital channels. And most of our customers prefer to transact business with us online or through mobile devices. So one of the things we have done, if you haven't had a chance to go to ssa.gov, we just redesigned our website. We wanted to make it more easy to navigate for customers. It was really spurred by our CX effort. And it's a task-based approach. And we really took a customer-centric approach, and we did the customer end-to-end journey when we developed that. So those new pages and improvements are based on public feedback, and we will continue to kind of iterate on that. But we also manage the system that ensures the right payment get to the right person at the right time, and all of us on the show today or one day are going to benefit from that. So, but those systems are in terrible need of modernization. So to accelerate that, we establish a benefits modernization PMO. Their focus is on to modernize those core applications, those core systems, to make them more internet, mobile, accessible, and to answer the needs of our employees who are processing that information. So we're really focusing on our retirement, survivors, and disability systems, our supplemental security income systems, and our Medicare application systems to modernize, and we want to accelerate that. So we recently announced an executive position, if you follow me on LinkedIn, for a chief program officer for that position. So we're looking for a new approach to modernize those systems and looking for some good candidates. We also continue to do other strategic modernization planning to include looking at platforms. We're moving from project to product framework. We're looking at enhance our security, our databases, our structures. And over the past 2 years, Luke, we have continued to evaluate and retire technical debt, right? But what's really driving us to determine which technical debt to target is really a human-centered approach, and that points us to those priorities that we want to focus on. But we're very pleased at some of the progress that we made. We eliminated over 185,000 lines of COBOL code.
Nice.
We continue to do that, and that's going to be a key focus for that new benefits program management office to modernize that and put that on a cloud-based platform. But a lot more work to do, Luke. And
sure, it's no doubt it's always a journey. Good catch on the that customer experience. You have two sets of customers, like every agency. Sort of the promise to the citizens, we'll call it, external, and then of course internal to your own employees. Let's roll over to Guy, who's very familiar with transforming. He did it at TSA. He went over to SBA and did it there, and now he's over at OPM on a journey there to transform and modernize and digitize, et cetera. Give us a state of the state, Guy, as to how it's going.
Thanks, Luke. Third time's the charm, right?
Right.
The beauty of me being able to lead cloud efforts at 3 different agencies is obviously I learned lessons learned each time and was able to fine-tune it. It's easy for people to forget, but 4 years ago, OPM was in the process of being dismantled, and with that, we lost a lot of leadership. So I knew for me to be able to make any transformation journey, I had an incredible number of vacancies and leadership positions to fill. So first thing I did was I filled about 25 mid-level and upper level managers, including creating a cloud lead position and a productivity lead for the agency. So a CIO can only do so much. As you know from your experience, you have to have the troops there to help you get things done. So with that leadership in place, the other thing I saw is that because OPM was in this phase of, are we going to exist? Are we going to go away? When COVID hit, we had 6 different productivity tools in use at the agency, and none of them at the enterprise level. So just think about that. The director of the agency couldn't even communicate other than email with every single employee. And then even within an office, they couldn't communicate from the right side of an office to a left side. So I've broken this into multiple phases. On the end user end, we went to an enterprise collaboration tool. So now everybody can communicate, they can make calls from home. Really changed our productivity. The other thing, being such a cloud advocate, is we created our first cloud, and we have actually in FY22 we moved 28. We either moved or created applications. 28 applications that would have been previously done on premise are now in the cloud. So, I'm a big proponent that the cloud is the future for government. That our role shouldn't be to run data centers. I don't know of a single agency whose sole core mission is to set up and run a data center. At OPM, we are the personnel agency of the government. So I want us to get out of the business of patching old servers and downtime and get into the business of investing as much as we can in our core mission of, and you highlighted it earlier, Luke. Obviously we support a lot of citizens. USA Jobs is used by over 85% of the applicants that come into the federal government. So we're a gateway, for my friends on the panel to be able to hire staff. But then our other customers are the other agencies that we work with, managing the health benefits program and features like that. Even though I had a big load to work with, Congress decided to give me a new project of creating a postal service health benefit system with a very short timeline. So luckily, by having those new leaders that I put in place, we have our own digital services team. I was able to put people on that project. We are not going to lift and shift the old federal employee system. We are building in the cloud a new system that will, be first for the postal employees, and then later on we'll come back and pick up the rest of the federal government. So, yeah, go ahead.
I would just say, no doubt that extensive cloud experience that you've been able to obtain has put you in a position to really take that on and deliver it quickly.
Absolutely. And like I'd like to tell our peers, the cloud's been around for almost 19 years now, folks. It's no longer, we have to wait because it's too new. You need to get in gear and get going and get out of the data center business.
It sounds like you're on a tear there once again. No surprise. We really do appreciate it, Guy. Michael, we can't do this unless we have absolute connectivity at the highest order, reliable, secure. But Verizon is up to a lot of stuff. Give us a top line as to where you are in helping these agencies enable their modernization journey.
Thank you, Luke. I think what I'd like to get into is kind of the progress we've seen in the government around IT modernization. If that's okay, because I think that's key kind of to the discussion that we're having here.
Sure.
So from our perspective, we see the prioritization from Congress and the administration has around IT modernization, as well as the customer experience aspect of it in cybersecurity. We think it's great. So for the government to be able to help its workforce be successful and deliver the services people need, IT modernization has to be a top priority. So secondly, I think the government agencies are starting to take advantage of increased funding. EIS, or what's also known as the Enterprise Infrastructure Solution contract vehicle, is a good example of that. So we announced, for example, a few months ago, an EIS task order with the U.S. Department of State to modernize their global communications infrastructure, and provide IT services for each of the Department of State's U.S. embassies, consulars, and other key locations around the world. So that's a pretty big project. Last summer, we announced a task order for the FBI through EIS that will help the Bureau modernize and expand its network infrastructure, data and voice solutions. And then a few months ago, we announced three EIS task orders with the Department of Defense to modernize IT communications infrastructure. So we see the federal agencies are taking advantage of the opportunity, whether it's EIS or increased funding in the Technology Modernization Fund or other contract vehicles and programs. I know this is a Fed panel, but we also have some infrastructure investment in the Jobs Act, for example. So that'll help state and local governments. So I'd say that, those are all the signs of progress. And to keep the progress moving forward, I think more needs to be done to give government agencies the flexibility they need to modernize. So to me, greater flexibility and more options are going to be key. And that's what's going to keep us moving forward.
Good points. The funding and certainly EIS landed at the right time to enable these missions. So No doubt that all these agencies are extensively taking advantage of that. Jonathan, BMC software, a critical component into enabling this digital journey. Give us a state of the status to how you all are unlocking these capabilities.
Yeah, thank you very much, Luke, for that. And thanks to the panel so far. Really, really fantastic conversations. So the primary focus for BMC with technology like Control-M is how do we help IT operations accelerate their modernization by strengthening their automation and their orchestration framework. So that is our forte and our focus. But doing that at the same time, while providing customers with more freedom within that framework to drive organizational best practices that they're designing and that you're hearing about from a lot of the customers today. So, for example, we're expanding our framework with things like Airflow integration so that data engineers can orchestrate their data pipelines using tools that they know, but also doing it from within an enterprise platform like Control-M, which gives them all the industrialized capabilities that we've built up in a platform like Control-M over the years. We're also focusing on increasing operational efficiencies, which is a big deal. So we're doing that with new file transfer capabilities, which is greatly enhancing the ability to orchestrate both internal and external file transfers within your workflows. We've got to focus on self-service and collaboration. We think that that's a very, very, very significant component to modernization within that framework. So, for example, developers, engineers, they can complete their tasks inside of Control-M without submitting service requests, which probably scares a lot of folks. But it basically means that we're giving them more freedom to do their jobs. They can use the language of their choice when they're building their workflows within the application. And within Control-M. At the same time, we have an obligation to make sure that we are supporting our core, which is IT operations. So we're providing them with quicker and easier ways to enforce organizational standards through new site standard policies so that we've got a good balance between the two. There's a lot more, Luke, on top of that. Look, if you think about the fact is we have to keep pace with such a constant growth of new technology that's supporting the enterprise, that's supporting modernization. So we've got to change the way that we're delivering, for example, new integrations that are coming out of our integration factory team.
Mm-hmm.
We have to deliver new operational enhancements for ops users. We've got to deliver new business users with new ways to consume our stuff. So we've got a lot of stuff that we've got to contemplate and think about. I think it really reinforces the opportunity and in some cases, the real challenge that we have as technology partners to support IT modernization.
And no doubt, if you're going to deliver at the speed of mission, you have to automate some of these processes. So we really do appreciate the capability that you're enabling there. We're going to take a short break. We'll be back in just a moment. You're listening to the Federal Executive Forum on Federal News Network.